Welcome to Her Fantasy Football, where the three of us sisters love to talk fantasy. Welcome, welcome. Make sure to hop over to herfantasyfootball.com and on iTunes. I'm your host, Courtney Kirby.
And I'm Ashley Williams.
And I'm Brandon Lee.
And this is the Super Bowl wrap-up show.
And coach changes.
Patriots, you won. And their fans. Patriots Nation. That's a very exciting time for you. Just you, though. I'm pretty sure everybody else is not a fan. Just kidding. Take it back. I take it back. Just a quick thing. We have a really exciting announcement. We are signing on with Blog Talk Radio.
Woohoo!
The only bad part is that if you listen to us on SoundCloud, we will be changing over to a different feed on the SoundCloud. So if you subscribe to us and then all of a sudden you disappear, please come find us on iTunes or later on SoundCloud.
And Stitcher.
And Stitcher in the next few months. So, but Blog Talk Radio /Her Fantasy Football. We're so excited. It's a great family there, and we are pumped to be part of it. It's a big thing.
Yeah.
Pretty huge.
Pumped.
It's pretty big. Pretty big. And hop over to herfantasyfootball.com and subscribe to us too, so you can get our mailers, when our next shows are coming out and all that fun stuff. But hey, let's talk about some Super Bowl, right?
Yeah.
Do it. I know what everybody's talking about, and it's not just the left shark. It is the last play of the game when the Seattle Seahawks decided to throw the ball instead of running the ball with Marshawn Lynch, the beast mode.
It's been so interesting, right, hearing everybody's different commentary. Because if you were out, it was just like radio silence in the bar. I was sitting with a Patriots fan, so of course he thought he was going to lose, and all of a sudden I was like, ah!
Right.
Nuts. And everyone's just like, beast mode! And then you hear the other side of the story where it's, they basically, on the goal line, have basically thrown all season long. And I had somebody actually tweet me, and they're like, they just play the numbers. Beast mode was, I think, 0 for 5 or 1 for 5 attempts at that range, and 0 interceptions. And I'm like, I think the first problem here is that he's only had 5 attempts off the 1 yard line all season. I'm like, how is this not what we're focusing on here? It was when you've got beast mode, one of the largest, most powerful running backs in the league, that you can sit there and say they played the numbers. Okay, yes, I understand this is to some extent work for them, but you're missing the bigger problem here. Am I wrong? Am I wrong on this?
Well, no, and I heard Pete Carroll talk about it today too, and he was just like, he wanted to eat up the time. He was kind of, I think, hoping for a dropped ball, and so they'd had 2 more plays to run and 1 timeout, and if they would have ran it and not made it, they would have had to take their timeout, and they still would have had the third down, 4th down without a timeout, and they didn't. They wanted to use some time but not take up too much time, so they were able to use their timeout. That's why they threw the ball, but those are the risks you take when you don't give it to your number 1 player.
The whole thing is that, also, Butler had never had something like that happen all season either. So, it was just on the defensive side of the ball. It was a great play for New England. I think sometimes we don't give defense enough credit. We think, oh, it was a terrible play call, it was this and that was that. And yeah, to me, when I watch all season, I don't know why they don't lean on Marshawn Lynch all the time. All the time.
It should be a Jamal Charles, Kansas City Chiefs scenario.
Yeah.
Yeah. Russell Wilson can run too. Okay, so there you go.
Right.
Running.
Here's my issue too here, right? And again, and this is not me being negative Nancy, hating on the Seahawks, hating on Russell Wilson. Those are all facts. That's not the case here. He didn't have a spectacular game. He only threw for, yet again, classic Russell Wilson, 200-some yards, 247 to be exact. He was basically non-existent in the rushing game with only 39 yards.
Yeah.
And then you decide to run this play, and they only had 20 targets as well. So it's not even like they were throwing the ball. Marshawn Lynch was the offense for the game. He was the hot hand. So I can sit there. You can say whatever you want about playing the numbers. this was not the situation. They did not have a spectacular offensive game. Marshawn Lynch was the offense, and you should have done it. And then, I think to myself when I was, back being an athlete, and you're in a game, right? And you always think, okay, I want the ball. I want that ball in that game moment. I want it to be me. Well, there are some games you don't want it to be you, right? You're like, I've not had the best game.
Right.
You shouldn't give it to me at this. I'm not. This is not the week for me to be the one to take this hit, take this shot, take whatever, And then we throw to a completely random player as well here. It blew my mind. It literally blew my mind.
Right. Well, I will say they should have run the read option. I think more than giving it to Marshawn Lynch, they should have had Russell Wilson run it in.
That's what I would thought too. Me too.
That he's been running in touchdowns all season. I didn't understand why they didn't go with that. I mean, at the end of the day, it was a great game. It was really close, and the play call, although seems bizarre, a lot of other teams would have done the same thing. It wasn't that out of line. It just didn't work out. I mean,
it's not out of line. But do you think there's a little bit of more of the backstory behind it? In terms of, I know they had offered him an extension the day of the Super Bowl, essentially, to Marshawn Lynch. But there's been kind of issues all season long with him, and I do not subscribe to the belief necessarily that they wanted Russell Wilson to get MVP and that they didn't want to be Marshawn Lynch.
That's so ridiculous.
That's ridiculous. You play to win the game. You play to win the game. They're not sitting there thinking with seconds left, oh, well, who does get in? I don't want to be this guy because then, he may get a car. No, that's not what they're thinking.
Right.
At all. But there maybe there is something there in terms of, because of the friction all season long, maybe there was a hesitation of doubt. Maybe that's why he only had 5 attempts on the goal line all season. I literally can't think of a logical reason why I'd only have 5 1-yard line attempts all season.
No, I mean, I agree with that. To me, that's a separate issue. I think in this game, I don't think it had to do with it. I think that's just what's worked for them. Listen, they've won a ton of games. It may seem crazy, but for whatever reason, they keep winning games, even though they've only given Marshawn Lynch the ball 5 times in the 1-yard line, and that makes no sense. We only realized it when it didn't work, that's what they'd been doing all season. Right. But I don't think, listen, which, by the way, speaking of the car, I will give Tom Brady minor props for the fact that he's going to give the car to Butler. That's nice. But, listen, they're going to make Russell Wilson the most high. They've already said they want to have him be the highest paid quarterback in the league. I don't think that they thought, oh, he's a charity case and we need to give him a car. He's going to be able to afford his own car in a couple months.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I mean, he's a severely underpaid quarterback at the moment.
Oh, certainly.
But that's all just part of that initial rookie deal, right? I certainly do not think he warrants being the highest paid quarterback in the league. I will absolutely adamantly say that.
Jimmy Garoppolo is a higher paid quarterback than Russell Wilson. Did you know that?
Which is crazy, and this is granted now. But I'm saying when he gets his extension, he should.
Russell Wilson.
Yeah, he should not be the highest paid quarterback in the league.
I don't know.
What contract going on with Lynch then?
Yes. So speaking of, obviously we just talked about the contract extension. They're going to try to work it out. For me, from fantasy perspective, moving forward, everything is connected to whether or not Lynch gets a contract. If Lynch gets the contract, you can go into next season. Russell Wilson and Marshawn Lynch are huge gets. Definitely draft them high. If Marshawn Lynch leaves, I think that is killer for Russell Wilson and for their team. He's a read option guy. That's what he does. And if he doesn't have that power back, and nothing against Turbin or Michael, I'm sure that they're lovely people, but Marshawn Lynch is special, and I'm a little sick of us devaluing running backs because almost every single team that was in the playoffs had a power back. You have to have a good running back. I know that we pretend like they're not important and that anyone can fill it.
And a non-committee situation.
Exactly. They are not successful. So, I mean, I think Seattle realized that. I think once they got to the Super Bowl, they realized that because all season they were talking about not extending him. So something must have happened. I will say Marshawn Lynch's defense, when he was asked about the last play of the game, he was asked if he was surprised that he didn't get the ball at the end of the game, and he said no, because this is a team sport. I thought, yeah. Way to go, man. So he's kind of playing all his cards right. I'm hoping that this happens. For fantasy purposes, it must happen. It must happen.
For you to have anybody relevant on the Seahawks next year.
Yeah.
Which is sad. Yeah, it really is sad that Russell Wilson's value is so directly tied to Marshawn Lynch. More than I would say any other running back, quarterback combo in the league. Easily. Easily the most connected tandem in terms of fantasy value.
Yeah, the only way that I could change my opinion is if they decided, you know what, we're not going to do Marshawn Lynch, but we're going to get DeMarco Murray or Adrian Peterson or some of these like freelance.
Yeah, exactly. That's the only way.
If they're not going to pay for Marshawn Lynch, they're not going to pay for Adrian Peterson because Adrian Peterson right now is making double the amount of money that Marshawn Lynch is making.
Right.
Think about that.
Get it done. All right. Well, let's talk about the team that actually won. Right? I mean,
let's do it.
What a game. It was a good game.
Great game.
You know, it was a great game. I really enjoyed it without enjoying either team. So my husband and I, well, it's true. My husband and I, we played, we made a makeshift fantasy game. And unfortunately, my husband got first pick. So my team kind of just went downhill from there.
Who was his first pick?
Lynch.
Oh.
Lynch. Yeah.
So we got Lynch, and then I took Gronk because I know there's no tight end other than Gronk on the whole entire field. And then he took Brady, so obviously I got Wilson. I got LaFell. He got Edelman. He got Goscat. I mean, he really just won out. So he won, unfortunately. But way to go, Brady. You pulled it out. 4th Super Bowl. Congratulations. That's pretty amazing.
Big
and the
win.
balls were up to par. So all really good. It's all really good.
Although I was watching it with one of my best guy friends, huge Patriots fan. He and I have fought for years. And he even chuckled a couple times when Brady slipped the ball and threw the ball into the ground a couple times. And he's like, "Oh, those damn properly inflated balls." Yeah, we're seeing that right now, aren't we? Whoop whoop! We got a couple hand slips going here.
Little hands.
My husband was freaking out about those. He was like, grounding. Doesn't anyone call grounding anymore?
But it clearly wasn't grounding.
Rage.
It was clearly he attempted to throw the ball and didn't have a proper grip on it, and I was just like, bleh.
So weird.
It's like, is it grounding or a terrible pass?
Yeah.
Ugh, I don't know.
Maybe
both?
Can it be both? Can we call penalty? Can we call penalty in both?
You had some really nice passes too.
Yeah, I did.
He did, which is interesting because when you look at the stats, this is what's actually so fascinating to me about the Seahawks, right? Is because actually statistically they're not a great team. And you watch that game and you're like, that was a really great game. And it was. And stats-wise, it was not even close.
Not even close.
Not even close. Like, I mean, let's just say, yards alone, receiving yards between the receivers, Patriots 273, Seattle Seahawks 138. Yardage, Brady threw for almost 100 more yards than Russell Wilson. Although I do love when you're looking at their and Russell Wilson only ran for 39, but Tom Brady had -3, which is right on par where Brady always is.
Always is.
But it lists your longest run, right? And so it has Russell Wilson at 17 yards, and then Tom Brady -1 was his longest. I'm like, oh, I love it. But what was really interesting, which I thought at least, and I was a little surprised, although not really based on the interview we had beforehand with this mad scientist. What was that we were on?
Yeah, Nick Raleigh.
Yeah. So, but the targets wise, the Pats they were in the air all day. Blunt was pretty much non-existent. And they really picked up Vereen, which we thought they might do in the passing game. And they had 50 targets compared to the Seahawks 20. So it was just a really kind of divided. It wasn't even close with the stats. I mean, the Patriots just dominated the game entirely. It's crazy.
Well, yeah. I mean, Brady threw 2 interceptions, and Seattle scored right off of them, So that's what made the game so great is because, Seattle's defense,
go ahead.
No, Seattle's defense was not. I mean, to me, Patriots defense is what we should be talking about.
Yeah, they
They
did a great
won
job.
that game. And it wasn't just that last interception. After Tom Brady threw the second interception and Seattle came down and scored, they held Seattle to 3 punts and then an interception. That is how they won the game. It was all the Patriots' defense. You know, defenses win championships, and the Patriots just clearly had the better defense that Sunday. I'm not saying in general, but I'm saying that Sunday the Patriots' defense came up big. And they won, you know, and they deserved to win. At least I felt like they deserved to win watching the game, you know. For Russell Wilson. I really enjoy Russell Wilson, so for him to throw the interception at the end, I felt so bad. I was like, anybody else could have messed up.
I know.
Poor Russell Wilson. He gives so much time to charity.
Oh, you're such a better person than me, Courtney.
He's such a good person. I was just like, I felt bad. And I had him on my fantasy team, so it was.
See, he was on my fantasy team, and I still disliked him. But my New Year's resolution this year was to like Russell Wilson.
Oh, Ashley.
Yeah, I know. It's big of me. I'm growing.
You're growing.
Oh, that's really,
so,
you know.
I did feel bad. I did feel bad because it wasn't his fault. It was a fantastic defensive play. And quite honestly, I was shocked. And as I'm sitting there, I'm like, who's going to get MVP? Who's going to get MVP this game? Because I personally don't feel it should be. I don't think it should have been Brady. But are you going to give it to Butler? I mean, statistically, I'm sure they had to come down and really figure it out. I mean, how do you give some guy who threw 2 interceptions? Granted, he threw 4 touchdowns. But then it's like, okay, maybe Edelman. Edelman had a lot of yards. He was a big part of this game. Maybe it's him. Maybe it's someone else on the defense. The defense really stepped it up. It's like, how do you decide?
Vince Wilfork.
Man, I tell you. But what I liked about that actually is I liked that it was a really even play throughout the entire team. It was very much a team win, which made an MVP hard.
It was really good. They did a really good job.
I agree.
Yeah.
I would also like to say that for fantasy purposes, there was a guy named Chris Matthews that no one had heard of because he had never done anything.
Right.
And then he overtook the Seattle Seahawks offense for a little bit there. And I just want to give you guys a little fantasy football heads up, because what's going to happen is he's going to be super inflated in fantasy drafts, especially if you're doing like ML10s or like all those other things. So let's just make sure that because some people do really early keeper or drafting or dynasty, and let me give you a little insight here. So he caught 4 passes for 109 yards and a touchdown during the Super Bowl. Those were the first 4 passes he's ever caught in the NFL. You only heard of him one other time because he actually did a great job and he grabbed the onside kick in the NFC Championship game. So they wouldn't have even been in the Super Bowl without this guy. So that is a plus for him. However, he was kind of like a CFL star. He was actually working at Foot Locker, though, before he came to Seattle. I have no idea what's going to happen here, but I do know that Seattle doesn't throw the ball, and this guy is random.
Right.
So combine the two, it's a little hard, but it was such a Seahawks move, wasn't it, for him to be the star of the game?
Well,
it's
you know
classic.
That he was in junior college. He was at his buddy's house, and he told him that Pete Carroll lived down the street, and so he went and got his high school film and hand-delivered it to Pete Carroll to try to get him to go to USC, to get him a scholarship to USC.
That's awesome.
So it's kind of cool that it's like a full circle. He's come back, and now he's playing for Pete Carroll for the Seattle Seahawks in the NFL, which, you know, is super cool. But yeah, don't do that, you guys.
Don't go in.
How Seattle plays their offense.
And he's especially going to go too high because he's 6'5". And for some reason, fantasy football players only believe that amazing wide receivers are a certain height. But Antonio Brown is 5'8".
Right. And you know, if they lose,
just a reminder.
And all of a sudden their like offense like really goes weird, and come preseason they are really throwing the ball. Okay, but still you have to realize it's Russell Wilson and he's a runner. And
Zach was to say, yeah.
Yeah, you just have to
They don't score touchdowns. The receivers don't score touchdowns. Again, the total yardage for all of the Seahawks wide receivers was 138 yards, and 109 of those came from one player. I mean, they don't score touchdowns. Like, you've got people like Julio Jones and Antonio Brown scoring 138 yards by themselves in a game on a regular basis. So like Brandon said, don't go nuts here and make some crazy play for Chris Matthews, because, again, it is typical Seahawks that he blows up this game, and the first game of the season, Paul Richardson's going to come out and kill it, and then the next week is going to be Curse, and then after that we're going to have Lockett, and then maybe Matthews again, and then what about Doug Baldwin, our technical wide receiver one here, who only had 3 yards all game? Don't do it. Don't do it to yourself.
No. I will say, actually, I want to correct myself. Antonio Brown is 5'10". That's what he says. Not 5'8".
5'10" is a dirty liar, and we all know this.
I love that Russell Wilson. You got asked about his height before the show, and he's like, "I'm sticking with 5'11". That's why I keep my hair long."
Nice.
You know,
that's exactly right.
Exactly. But he's sticking with it because everything counts.
Here's the thing, guys. All of us ladies know you're lying when you say you're 5'10". And I feel bad for someone that maybe really is 5'10". Because when you tell me you're 5'10", that really means that you're about 5'7" to 5'8", generally. Always. Guaranteed. 5'11", you're generally about 5'9", 5'10". Or maybe you grew your hair out long, like you're saying, to get the little extra inch there. It's ridiculous.
I fight with my husband about this all the time because he's actually 5'10", and he tells people he's 5'10". I was like, don't do that. You have to at least say 5'11". He's like, but that's a lie. I said, but everyone else who's 5'8" says they're 5'10". So you look like the liar.
So you are the liar. You're lying for truth.
Too funny. Well,
awesome.
We're just going to cover this real quickly. I know Ashley wants to talk a little bit about Missy Elliott, so we'll let her get on a little rant here, and then we'll move on to some coach changes in NFL news.
Corny, it is not a rant, I would like to say.
He's amazing.
I am appalled that people did not know who Missy Elliott was.
Oh my God! Someone Harry to bring out this new Missy girl.
I mean,
people said that.
Fun. Yes, they're like this Missy girl's gonna blow up now that Katy Perry was so nice to invite her onto the Super Bowl. Like, and it was like anybody of like our generation was just like, excuse me.
Yeah, everyone I knew just screamed Missy Elliott at their television all in unison.
Yes, there was There was. It's fine. I did my key takeaways, and I was like, Missy Elliott is still the woman. She's still awesome. She threw it down, stole the show for me.
Yeah.
Her and the completely rogue dancing shark that clearly forgot his dance moves and was just like combining some Macarena jazz, just like throwing his fins all about. I mean, he was fantastic.
But I thought the right shark was doing it too. I must have missed something. I thought they were both just kind of flailing. They were in shark costumes, so it's not like they were doing ballet.
Right. Oh no, there was some definite like synchronization there. And I loved the creepy balls with like the mouths opening. Like the whole thing was like so creepy, but I'm sure kids were loving it.
Carson said if I was high right now, I'd be having a ball.
A ball. A ball. It's crazy.
Really. I don't know if marijuana would have gotten you there, but if you had taken some LSD, I think you would have had.
Well, especially if you were watching that, and then right afterward comes the Nationwide commercial where like a TV crushes a child, or I'm never gonna get married because I'm dead, and then like every possible way a child could die.
Well, in the Weight Watchers commercial, this like overeating America, we're all fat, we all do drive-through, and it like ends and it's like black screen with white Weight Watchers, and my 5-year-old's like, whoa, Mom, that was scary.
That's just...
There were some weird moments. Some weird moments.
Whoa, it was like crying every commercial break. It was so funny. Oh, man.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, though. I'm amazed at how people can find something to complain about every single time. Every single time. You guys, Katy Perry was on a huge metal pirate, or like...
crazy dog tiger
lion, and then there was like she flew in the air on a little stand and then sang the whole thing live.
Which she sounded great, by the way.
She sounded great. And still, people were like, that stunk. I hated that. Ugh. And I'm like, oh, my God.
And 4 costume changes within, like...
You just clearly don't like Katy Perry. Because that was amazing. And stop.
It was great. She did a fabulous job.
And you don't have to like Katy Perry. That's okay. It's not like I'm gonna run out and go and to a concert or something. But man, that was crazy good. And how about the cool effects where that looked like the stage was waving?
Oh yeah. The whole thing was really good. I really enjoyed it.
The More You Know star was awesome too.
And I think partly because of Katy Perry, the Super Bowl got the highest rankings it's ever gotten. So it had 120 million people tune in for that fourth quarter. So that's pretty amazing.
There we go.
Congratulations to the NFL.
History made.
This year. Yay.
And I have my one little surprise for you guys. It's a quick one. Today was the signing day for high schoolers. And I don't know if you guys know this, but Cordell Broadus, or Snoop Lions' son, committed to UCLA.
Hey.
And there's proud Papa standing next to him.
Was there a doubt?
And he's going to be playing with Diddy's son, who's a defensive back for them. So in other words, ladies, get yourself to UCLA. And just take a selfie, really. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily suggest dating anyone, but definitely take a selfie. I was so excited, and Snoop Lion was so happy.
I was like, probably one of Snoop Lion's proudest moments. I still have to call him Snoop Dogg. I can't do the Snoop Lion,
but he was beaming. He was such a beaming dad.
Old if those guys have high school or college students as their kids. That
is crazy.
That does make me feel old.
Definitely.
That I'm not so happy about.
Way to burn the mood down.
Sorry, sipping on gin and juice 25 years ago. Okay.
Awesome. Well, it was a great Super Bowl. We all three enjoyed watching it. It was a lot of fun. So congratulations again to the Patriots.
Congrats.
Yep. We're going to move on to some NFL news and coach changes. We're going to go division by division, team by team. We may not cover all the teams because really, who wants to talk about the Bengals? But we are going to do our best to inform you what's going on so you can get yourself pumped up for 2015 fantasy. We're going to start off with the AFC North and the Pittsburgh Steelers.
So I'll start with kind of news, right? So as we know, free agency is coming. It is on its way soon here. And the Steelers have got some decisions to make, and these things could very much impact the team here. So, they only have one outside linebacker on their roster. The rest of the people are James Harrison, Arthur Moats, and Jason Werlitz. They're all unrestricted free agents. Now, I never say his name right, but Werlitz is most likely of them to actually return to the team. And what is even more concerning, there's some really big names that are not expected to return with the Steelers, such as Ike Taylor, Troy Polamalu, Breck Heisel, and Harrison. This is going to be a really young, raw team next year. So don't go into this thinking that this is the Steelers that you have known for years. That they are going to have a very, very big change. And we have to get a contract extension / restructuring for Ben Roethlisberger and Antonio Brown in order to kind of free up some cap space to be able to make some of these plays and positions happen. So big changes for the Steelers. And perhaps one of the biggest, in my opinion, is the fact that fired, mutually part ways, conscious uncoupling. In this case, Dick LeBeau resigned and is no longer the defensive coordinator for the Steelers, which for me is like heartbreak. Yeah. When I think Steelers, I think Dick LeBeau. Am I wrong? If I don't see that face in the Steelers hat, I'm so sad. With that said, though, he goes, I'm resigning, but I'm not retiring. And he is now the assistant head coach / defense for the Titans. So he wanted to remain close to his Cincinnati home. He's 77 years old. He's a legend. He's a beast. And he's going to be with the Titans. So that's going to be a very, very big change, especially because you're going to be losing all these defensive players. Keep that in mind for next year. And then as far as coaching changes again here with the new hires, they announced that Keith Butler has been named as the team's replacement for Dick LeBeau as a defensive coordinator. So he's previously the Steelers linebackers coach, so at least he's ingrained in the system. But again, big change for the Steelers.
There we go. Cincinnati Bengals. There's no real news for the Bengals. The coaching staff, nothing really. I know that Vance Joseph was like really pending, like the Denver Broncos really wanted them, and they did not let that go down. So that's really the only thing. Cincinnati Bengals aren't changing much, so we'll see. We'll see how that defense can come back and be dominating again this year when they're a little bit more healthy. Prepare. They're getting a couple guys back that could change things up a bit for next year. The Baltimore Ravens, the biggest task for them for news is really signing Torrey Smith and to a long-term contract. Rumors that it's in progress, 5 years, $35 million deal with $19 million guaranteed. Smith hasn't said yes yet, but it should be going down, guys. So expect Torrey Smith to continue to be a Ravens. We should be fine there. Coaches, Mark Trestman is the 4th offensive coordinator in the last 4 years.
Trestman!
Former OC offensive coordinator Gary Kubiak has moved on to the Denver Broncos. Trestman is a West Coast style kind of guy, so we'll see if Mr. Flacco will be moving around a little bit more.
You know what? Flacco is the opposite of Jay Cutler. This is the greatest thing that's happened to the Ravens, and as a Broncos fan, I'm upset about it.
Right.
I think he's going to be fantastic next year.
Yes.
Because he's adaptable if he wants to learn.
Flacco is coachable.
Yep.
Coachable. They have weapons.
They have, yes.
His stock skyrocketed with this
deal here.
Yep. So
everyone's did.
And it seems that all of the defensive coaches are getting a bit of a promotion. So Harbaugh must be pretty impressed with his defense. So we'll see. I mean, it should be a pretty exciting year. Go Ravens. I'm into it.
Great. Well, we could do a whole show on the Cleveland Browns, so I'm going to try to keep this small. I love that the Browns have become relevant. I know it's for all bad reasons, but they are so relevant. It's insane. I spent so much time on this outline because I started with the Browns. I was like, I'm never going to get through with this.
But there's so much good, juicy meat with the Browns between Manziel and rehab, right? Josh Gordon suspended for another year. It's so good. I just want to hear it. I just want to hear it.
Textgate, where they are probably going to be fined and lose draft picks because their GM were sending illegal text messages during the game to coaches. Supposedly, this is part of the reason why Kyle Shanahan quit. And so we always talk about Deflategate, but Textgate is happening. And it's happening to the Browns.
And there's Noisegate, too, in Atlanta.
There's Noisegate in Atlanta. There's Deflategate.
Yeah. So pretty much your team, whoever you are, is probably cheating.
Yeah.
We're just going to start calling it gating it. They're gating it.
Yeah.
We've got to figure out what the prefix on the gate is.
Yeah. You know, though, that, like, Richard Nixon is, like, rolling over right now being like, but I was the leader of the free world. Yeah. Can they stop using this?
Or he's like, I'm the original, bitches.
Yeah, that's true. He's like, no, really. Yeah. So,
I started this train.
Let's get to Josh Gordon, because he's the most fantasy relevant person on the team. Other than the fact that he will have 0 fantasy relevance next year. He has been suspended for the entire year next year.
On your bench this time, guys.
And once again, we told you not to do that this year, but next year for sure.
Sure.
No
way.
No. So I will say this. So he was suspended for the year, at least a year. He can petition. He can apply to be reinstated after a year. By the way, it's not guaranteed that he gets in after that. But he violated the substance abuse policy by drinking. And he posted an open letter, by the way. I don't know if you saw this on Medium.com.
It was a very good letter.
It was a very well-written letter, and I encourage everyone to go see it. But basically, he said that he thought that he was done once the regular season was done. That was not the case based off of his prior history. And he actually says that he was on a plane with their wide receivers coach going to Las Vegas with teammates when he decided to have drinks on the plane. When he gets off the plane, he gets a phone call telling him he needs to get tested within 4 hours, and he was like, well, obviously I'm going to fail. So anyway, it's fascinating. I would definitely check it out. But anyway, if you play Dynasty, I would keep him because he's only 23. Reminder, he's only 23. So at some point you hope that he comes to, but this is not good.
No.
And now for the less fantasy impactful player, Johnny Manziel entered a treatment program to figure out his value system. I'm not entirely sure. The details about why he's in rehab and what he's working on specifically is just not out there. It's a very wishy-washy.
Yeah, more.
That's fine with me. I don't think.
We don't need to know the details.
I don't need to know the details. I know that it did not work out for him this year, and if he needs to go into treatment, do it. And I think that more people need to get help, especially if you have the money like he does. He has the resources. Why not? Go get a hold of it. Whatever it is, get a hold of it, because he has not done that yet. And so, listen, we've been hard on Johnny Football in this program for sure, but we look forward to being proven wrong. So come back. Best of luck to you. I have nothing but positive vibes to send your way. But in the meantime, there is a rumor that the Browns may trade up in the draft to get a quarterback, Marcus Mariota or Jameis Winston, because they have learned nothing.
If they have Johnny Manziel and Jameis Winston on the same roster at the same time, Armageddon is coming.
It doesn't make them fantasy worthy, but it makes them newsworthy.
Exactly. It makes unbelievable. That's like Sophie's choice right there. Winston or Manziel.
It's like, and then here's the shocker: Jordan Cameron supposedly doesn't want to go back to the Browns.
I wonder why.
Wow.
I wonder why.
Because he knows his moral values.
And it's called "I'd like to win a football game."
Yep. I'm here
I don't even care about your value. I don't. Anyway. Fascinating. So that brings us to the coaching problems. So they hired Joker. I promise you guys, this is the longest team ever, and I apologize, and everything else will be shorter. They hired Joker Phillips as the wide receivers coach, which is a good idea considering the other guy was on the plane while Josh Gordon, their star wide receiver, was drinking. He was a wide receiver himself and a former Kentucky head coach, where he also coached both Stevie Johnson and Randall Cobb. So fingers crossed.
All right, that's good.
They still have a vacancy for the quarterback's coach / worst job ever.
Or best job ever, depending on who they draft.
It's unbelievable.
I'm hoping for it. Is that bad? I'm hoping for it.
I just can't. It's sad. So they hired John okay, this is hard for me. John DeFilippo. Yes. As the offensive coordinator. He's a former Raiders quarterback coach. 2 stats that may or may not surprise you. Derek Carr was 5th in the league with 71 passes of 20-plus yards in the air, for whatever that's worth. Ooh. And then in 2012, Carson Palmer finished with the 2nd most passing yards, 4,018, in Raiders franchise history, for whatever that's worth. But I will say that's what the Browns have on their website to introduce him. But in the good news, he actually worked with Coach Patton with the Jets in 2009. He was an assistant quarterbacks coach for Mark Sanchez his rookie year when he took them to the AFC Championship.
And he played well. Let's say when he played well.
When he played well. So that is I'm leaving you on that semi-positive note.
Does anybody feel like a Lifetime movie is going to be made if indeed Jameis Winston is drafted? I feel like he'd be like Draft Day 2, a movie that'll come out like a decade from now. But the ramifications would be so good.
I don't know if that's what the title will be.
Yeah.
I'm saying a little prayer every night till the draft that this happens.
Oh, okay. Don't make this New Year's resolution, all right?
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the AFC South and the Indianapolis Colts. The big news coming out of Indy is that the Colts just signed the Canadian Football League receiver Duron Carter. And you're like, well, who cares? Well, that's Mr. Chris Carter's son.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Good genes. Good
show of sons.
Yeah, it's a show of sons. Last year when playing for Montreal, Carter finished the season with 12 touchdowns, 1,939 yards,
Ooh.
Granted, this is the CFL, but still, those are huge numbers.
Yeah.
So, and his quarterback's Andrew Luck. So winning.
Yep. All good things.
Fantasy worthy,
so
guys. This one could be fantasy worthy, because he does have a quarterback who actually throws. Coaches, rising coaches star Rob Chudzinski, I think.
Chudzinski,
yep.
Will remain in Indy for another season. Last season he had the title of special assistant. But after San Francisco apparently wanted them as his head coach, they've bumped him up to associate head coach. So it's very all exciting. He's fabulous. They have a pretty great team to coach. So status quo kind of thing going on here. Houston Texans. Anything there?
So there's a lot of teams I don't cover at all. And this one I don't know why I felt bad like I had to write something down for it. But I did. And again, it's very much not really super fantasy relevant. A couple things, though, are. So there is talk of Andre Johnson being cut to open up cap space. So
why not?
That will be really interesting. So clearly he was not super happy last year. Kind of weird fit. Which then also comes into play that there's also been some talk of interest in Ryan Mallett from the Jets. And what I love about it is that they want competition at the quarterback position.
I hate that.
Let's throw Ryan Mallett in the mix, right? Because that's certainly going to stir up the proper competition between Vic and Geno Smith. No, it's not. But so we got some more quarterback woes there. You know, you may have Andre Johnson gone, and you don't have a whole lot else. So, fantasy-wise, again, it's not super relevant to you because none of these players did anything really at all last year. In terms of coaches, new hires, so after interviewing with the Eagles twice, Brian Gain of the Texans will receive a promotion instead of leaving for the Eagles GM job. What's interesting is it's actually unclear as to what his new title and role will be in Houston.
Nice.
Literally, they don't know, but he's staying on. He's staying, I guess. So great.
Assistant to the regional manager.
Assistant to, yeah. We got a whole lot of like backslash titles, and who knows what these are. Hopefully that'll get figured out the next month here or so. But they've also hired a new offense and defensive line coaches in Mike Devlin and Paul Pasqualoni. I probably butchered that name. But that actually is a little bit interesting there because, you know, defensive, the Texans are really good. So I'm intrigued they have a new defensive line coach. And then with a new offensive line coach, that's a big deal too because Arian Foster really is your most relevant person on that team. So that could have an impact, so you're definitely going to pay attention. OTAs preseason is make sure there isn't anything that really got jolted too much in that mix. So that's really it for the Texans.
Nice. Jacksonville Jaguars.
Oh my gosh! Right? Sorry, I'm being annoying. Jacksonville Jaguars. Well, they are opening the door for Justin Blackmon to come back. I mean, I just got done talking about Josh Gordon, so I would love to talk about Justin Blackmon. I tell you, you guys, when I started this outline, I was like, oh, these teams that I cover, it's really amazing.
I know. I have no coaches changes or anything because all my teams are really good.
Really? Oh, yeah. Well, and mine are, I mean, everyone has changed. It's a nightmare. But so also, for some reason, they had to say that Blake Bortles is going to be the franchise quarterback. Yes, he's going to be the franchise quarterback, you guys. I don't know.
Yeah.
So anyway, I don't get it, but you know they have so many other needs that the last thing they need to do is to replace Blake Bortles. What they do need to do is keep him upright because he was sacked a league high 55 times and he only started 13 games. Yeah. So maybe that's where we need to focus.
You know what I like to call it, Brandon? Character building for rookies. That's what we call that.
We think that green stain on your uniform is really how it works out for you.
Character building.
Spending their money. You know, I just don't get it.
I don't get it either. But so anyway, coaches, very funky town in Jacksonville. Funky town. They fired running backs coach. That's still open, and no one ran the ball really. So interesting. New offensive coordinator though, Greg Olson. So he was the Raiders' offensive coordinator, but he was the assistant head coach and quarterbacks coach in Jacksonville prior to that under Mike Mularkey. So he's actually kind of coming home. So that's kind of where that comes in, because the Raiders actually had like the worst offense last year statistically.
I was like,
in the
that's
league.
just what Jacksonville needs, is for a Raiders coach
Yeah.
to help them out on offense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and meanwhile, supposedly they weren't interested in Mark Trestman. Wow.
Well, why would they? They don't want to win.
You guys, sometimes I read these things and my mind goes blank. So more crazy than that was the Doug Marrone hiring. So we kind of talked about this. Doug Marrone was the Buffalo Bills head coach last year. Buffalo Bills actually did really well. Their defense was awesome. They didn't make the playoffs, but overall, it was a pretty decent year. And out of nowhere, Doug Marrone decides that he's going to back out of his contract, because there was a stipulation that he could back out if they had new management. And then he sent a mass text message hours after it had been announced to the press, to the team, to say, yeah, I quit. So thought he was going to get these head coaching jobs, and then everyone was like, I'm sorry, you're crazy, and no one wanted him. So now he's an offensive line coach at Jacksonville.
Something had to have gone down, right? I mean, people just don't behave that way.
It's one of the weirder stories of the offseason, really.
It's weird.
It's really
disconnect.
Complete disconnect. So, listen, he's also the assistant head coach, and I don't know if that just means that he takes over in week 3 when Gus Bradley gets fired if they stink again. I don't know. But yeah, so that's what he's doing. Hopefully he can fix the offensive line problems. And then that's the right thing to do news. There are 3 offensive line coaches that are actually employed by the Jacksonville Jaguars. One of them is Doug Marrone. Another one's the assistant, and the other one was diagnosed with cancer last year, and the Jacksonville Jaguars made the classy move of keeping him employed so that he can continue getting treatment. So I'd like to say thank you, Jacksonville.
Very nice.
Like to hear that. To win football games, but you guys win in life. That's good. I like that. AFC West, Denver Broncos. There's some changes in there.
Just a few.
Just a few.
We're skipping the Titans on purpose, by the way.
Yes, because no one cares. Literally, Dick LeBeau was the news. We already covered that one. So, moving on. As we all know, the main news in Denver is will Peyton Manning not come back for next season? He said he doesn't want to draw things out, and it is possible that he'll make his decision very shortly here. It has nothing to do with the physical, as people keep wondering about. He gets a physical done every year per his initial contract for at least the first year, where he had to get tested for his neck to make sure that he was actually physically fit to play. That is not part of it. He feels confident he can pass that. He has gone on to say the Broncos have urged him to take some time and to really think about it. But I think what we all really know what's going on here, and what they have actually said is that, it's really, is he confident with Kubiak? Peyton doesn't like change. He's a professional, he knows it happens, but it's kind of been like, is he going to feel confident and come back and play with Kubiak and like the system and whatnot? And of course he can, because they're both professionals. Either way, a decision has to be made by March 9th, and so we will know. I think we'll know sooner than that, to be quite honest with you. Interestingly enough, Broncos are looking to switch from a 4-3 to a 3-4, so that should be fun. We got Wade Phillips back in the house, so I'm excited to see how that's going to play out. And
yeah, we got everybody back in the house.
We do, everybody.
Union.
I basically said we literally have like American Pie reunion going on here.
I think that John Elway believes in astrology or something. Like he's getting the mojo in or something. Like if you believe it, he has like a vision board.
Mm-hmm.
Like Super Bowl.
Yes. Yes, he is, right? Because Gary Kubiak of the Baltimore Ravens formerly has found his way back in Denver as the head coach. As we all know, Kubiak played with John Elway. He was his backup, and then he also was a coach during the Super Bowl era. So, again, good juju is what we're liking there. Then with that came Rick Dennison, who is back as an offensive coordinator round 2. He had also been a quarterback's coach at some point for the Broncos. He was a quarterback's coach last year with the Ravens. Clearly we saw the Falcons did great with that. He's back. And then Wade Phillips is also saddling back up at the Maha as a defensive coordinator. So we've got some exciting and interesting, weird flashbacks. There'll be a lot of deja vu going on. It's going to be a little confusing. But I'm excited to see what's going to go on. We do have 17 players slated to be either unrestricted or restricted free agents, so that's a lot. And big names. So we got like Demaryius Thomas, Julius Thomas, Terrence Knighton, Orlando Franklin, Raheem Moore, Jacob Tamme, and Virgil Green, and Wes Welker. That's a lot. That is a lot. Demaryius Thomas appears to get either a franchise player tag or a long-term deal if that can't be worked out. He's obviously the priority on that list, but I don't see a whole lot of things changing that's going to be fantasy-wise, but, we'll see. And, obviously everybody else was pretty much fired. You got, John Fox was sent, Jack Del Rio, Adam Gaze. It's a bad situation, but we'll see what happens. It's going to be interesting, Broncos. It all depend on Peyton, or we got to be really rooting for Brock here.
All right, what about those San Diego Chargers?
I have nothing of any fantasy relevance to say about the San Diego Chargers.
Go Chargers!
Go Chargers! It's all staying the same.
Chiefs?
Go Chiefs! I got nothing for the Chiefs either.
Go Chiefs! Woo!
Steady Chiefs.
He's getting crazy. Crazy.
Well, they had two teams that are crazy, and then there's two teams that are just staying the same.
They are staying the same. Yep, and we'll talk about the second crazy team, which is the Oakland Raiders, which they're always crazy. Let's go to the coaches. The big news coming out of Oakland is the hire of head coach Jack Del Rio from the Denver Broncos, former defensive coordinator. That's fine.
Why?
That now makes two former Broncos coaches that have taken head coaching positions in the AFC West. Earlier this year, Oakland announced they have begun filling coaching vacancies, but they haven't had a defensive coordinator yet, which is kind of important. Although Jack Del Rio is a defensive coach, seeing how they had the worst defense in the NFL.
They have the opposite. It's like bad juju, right? Like
Denver
coaches are not working out over there. And yet they keep hiring them.
Yeah, it's kind of
Jim Schwartz.
Everybody's going to be new for the Oakland Raiders, but this does not change the fantasy value for the Oakland Raiders. So I'm not a huge Jack Del Rio fan. I'll say it as a Broncos fan, with the talent that we had, we should have been a lot better, although we did improve from the year before that, but come on.
Well, how could we not?
We've not with everybody that we bought.
Did you see that Super Bowl?
Yeah, I mean, come on. So, good luck. I hope you're not the worst team in the NFL. That's all I have to say to you. I mean, these coaches, it's going to be interesting. They need to do a lot during free agency to be relevant again. They're in a tough division, so good luck. Good luck. AFC East, New England Patriots. News, they won the Super Bowl. Hey.
There's that. Got
a little bit of news for you.
World champs.
Right. The only other news really is coming out is whether or not they're going to be able to re-sign superstar cornerback Darrelle Revis. Revis is a huge part of their defense, and their defense is a big part of fantasy. I mean, New England Patriots won quite a few games for people, so I hope so. But everybody else is pretty locked in. We're still pretty good, and coaches aren't, really changing at this point. It's all kind of staying the same. They're a cult. Nobody leaves the cult. So, continue. Buffalo Bills.
I will say, newsworthy. Check out Gronk's video of the parade, where he's like dry humping cars, tanks, dancing, pounding beers, catching beers from people in the stands. It's glorious and amazing. And to also check out the Conan Mortal Kombat video with him and Marshawn Lynch. It is worth every minute. And it's long, but it's well worth it.
Gronk reading part of a Gronk
erotica. Yes. There's been a lot of good Gronk stuff going on.
He is fabulous.
I know that we're opposed to giving it out as a gift, but I still think at some point we are going to give one of you lovely listeners a Gronking to remember. You see what I did there?
You should be
Good.
so
That was
lucky.
good. I will say my favorite part of the Conan part was when Marshawn Lynch was like, "You don't need to score a touchdown to grab your crotch, man. You can
Just grab it. Just grab it. Then he
And,
just
like-
sits down in the chair. Just
Oh,
it's amazing.
so good. It's so good. Buffalo Bills.
Buffalo Bills. Well, we already talked about the Doug Marrone situation, but I will say that they're trying to get C.J. Spiller back. He's going to be a free agent, so that's something to keep your eye on. And the reason why you need to keep an eye on it is because Sexy Rexy's in town.
I'm so pumped for this. This is huge for them. Huge.
It's unbelievable. In my opinion, he was by far the best head coaching prospect out there. Like, not even close. He gets to go to a defense that's already amazing,
Right.
and now he's just going to run with great running backs all the time. This is all the ground and pound. Boom. Sexy Rexy. And just to let you know it's a slow news day, but they did have in the news 2 days ago that he changed the colors of his tattoo of his wife from Jets colors to Bills colors. It's official.
That a boy.
Yeah. So he basically brought in a ton of Jets coaches. Dennis Thurman, defensive coordinator. Bobby April, linebackers. Carl Dunbar, defensive line. Tim McDonald, defensive backs. Eric Smith, special teams. Tony Sperano, Jr., tight ends. And Jeff Weeks, assistant defensive line. Not a whole lot from his offensive staff in New York, but
I was like, shocking.
Smart move. In bad news, Jim Schwartz left the post as defensive coordinator because of the philosophical differences. So basically, Jim Schwartz is a wide 9-4-3 guy, and then Rex Ryan is a very traditional 3-4 guy. So they have completely different ways of doing defenses. So the Bills actually were 3-4, and they moved to 4-3 this year under Jim Schwartz. They were great. They were great both years, but now they'll go back to a 3-4. So it's a little weird, but it's happening. And by the way, he still doesn't have a job, Jim Schwartz, so he should fill in Oakland, I guess, but he probably is like, I don't want to do that. Their new offensive.
I imagine he'd be easy to work with as not the main guy in town.
Well, he worked really well in Buffalo under Doug Marrone, and it looks like Doug Marrone's not easy to work with either. So.
Well, we don't know.
Well, maybe he is easy to work with. He maybe just like smacks you in the face with a text message breakup, and that's his big downfall. But they have a new offensive coordinator as well in Buffalo. It is Greg Roman. He's the former 49ers offensive coordinator. Over 4 years, his offenses were top 10 in rushing statistics. So it's the Rex Ryan way. It's going to happen. This is so good for Fred Jackson if C.J. Spiller stays. Maybe even Boobie Dixon. I may get behind a little Boobie.
You might get behind a little Boobie?
Just a little bit. And he also said that he's open to E.J. Manuel winning the job back, that he starts with a clean slate, and I agree. I think that's okay. He says that he shows promise but needs to build consistency. I would agree with that. And then he did finally hire Sanjay Lal as a wide receivers coach from the Jets, but I think he probably made him beg for it. But he's there now. It was after he hired everyone else from the defense. So, but I love Buffalo this year. Very exciting.
Very exciting. Always exciting. Dolphins.
The Dolphins. Kicking it, man. They're pretty good. They're good, and I've nothing really to report, and that's actually really exciting for me that they made some big steps this year where they didn't need to clean house. I mean, the kind of biggest thing they've got going is deciding what they're going to do with, Clay, really. Yeah. And that's not fantasy relevant enough to even report to you. So, great things in Miami. Moving on.
Yay, Miami.
Yeah.
New York Jets. They are expected to let Chris Johnson go. They also signed running back Daryl Richardson. Remember him?
Yeah, interesting.
Weird.
Interesting. And also Antonio Cromartie says that he's willing to come back to the Jets, and he's considering it. Why? Because they have a new head coach, Todd Bowles, who was the defensive coordinator for Arizona, so this is also great for the Jets. I'm really actually excited for this division. It's all good stuff happening for all these teams. Todd Bowles has been a guy that should have been a head coach for a really, really long time. He's a former NFL safety. He's a defensive coordinator for the Cardinals for the last 2 years. Before that, he was the defensive coordinator in Philadelphia, and then a secondary coach interim head coach in Miami. Remember when they fired Tony Sparano? And he won 2 out of the 3 games when he was that interim head coach. So in a really bad Miami at that time. So he's kind of a stud. And he also says that Geno Smith will get a fresh start. So that's interesting. Michael Vick is going to be a free agent. They don't look to be signing him again. They're probably also going to draft a quarterback, but they may or may not trade up. It sounds like they may just maybe try to do Russell Wilson in the middle or stick with Geno. It's a little crazy over there. Former Bills head coach Chan Gailey is now the offensive coordinator, and he likes athletic quarterbacks, so that's a thing. And then their Bills defensive line coach Pepper Johnson is now at the same position for the Jets, so that's good because he's going from one great great defensive line to another great defensive line. So, yeah, it looks like the Bills and the Jets are just switching places.
Boom. Switching bit. I like it. NFC North. Packers.
Aaron Rodgers was named the league MVP for a second time. Congratulations.
Congrats.
Yep.
I'm bummed, but
better luck never, JJ Watt. Yeah.
Right? But better luck never?
Better luck never.
If a defensive player was ever going to win it ever again, it was this year.
Them not making the playoffs ruined it, though. I mean, if they would have made the playoffs, I think it could have been a chance, but there was no way. But, yeah, it's not going to happen, people. We should just call it most valuable quarterback.
Seriously, that's what it is.
But Aaron Rodgers was very deserving. I'm not taking anything away from him, but, you know, facts are facts. John Kuhn wants to try free agency market. Okay, good luck. And Randall Cobb's going to be a free agent, and they need to tie that down. It's going to be hard because they have Jordy Nelson and Devontae Adams, so that is the biggest thing to keep your eyes on in this offseason. It stinks. Coaches, nothing really to report. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. They're just promoting everybody.
Good. Detroit Lions.
I'm on a roll, guys. Really nothing. Their biggest thing is they've got Sue, and the question is, how much money do they give him? Especially in context with some of the, usually I'd say off-field issues, but these are always on-field, very much on-field issues, stomping on people and whatnot. So that's kind of big news you'll be kind of hearing from them. But, you know, again, they weren't a bad enough team to clean house. So
I heard they do not want to lose him.
They don't want to lose him. They
don't.
don't.
So
the problem is they have to think future-wise with other contracts coming up as to just how much they can get them without completely screwing themselves a couple of years from now for the cap. So that's kind of the little game they're going to play here.
You know, if you ever go to the Oakland Raiders, like, you know, local newspaper or anything, everybody is going to the Oakland Raiders from free agency. I don't know if you saw that, but rumor has it.
Sue's going.
Oakland Raider. Randall Cobb is going to be an Oakland Raider. Macklin is going to be an Oakland Raider, guys. Just want to throw that out there.
I also heard Brett Favre is going to be an Oakland Raider. And
Terrell Owens.
Barry Sanders is making a comeback.
Yeah. I will say, those Oakland Raider fans, you guys are so loyal to me.
Dedicated.
Unbelievable. Hats off to you.
Hats off.
Always optimistic.
That's right. Minnesota Vikings. You know, the news, without a doubt, the biggest question is whether or not Adrian Peterson is going to come back and be a Viking again. So if they're going to let him go. You know, haters are going to say he's 30, he's on the downhill, but I don't believe in that. I think he's got plenty of mileage in him. I just don't know if it's going to be with a purple jersey on.
Yeah.
We'll see. There's, you know, rumors about him too. I'm sure you'll find it on the Oakland Raiders page. He's going to be a Raiders as well. But that's really the only news coming out of Minnesota. And for some reason, beyond me, I don't know. The Vikings coaching staff has not changed. So
they were better than they should have been last year. They shouldn't change it. They did a good job.
More teams need to give coaches more time, right? Especially with a rookie quarterback.
Could use some work.
Oh yeah, well that's true.
So you know, and Mike Zimmer is still employing like everybody that was under Leslie Frazier. And he's like didn't bring anybody else in. He was like still just rolling with it. I don't know. I mean, we'll see. It's always the potential of the Vikings, So I'm interested to see how this year goes down. Chicago Bears.
You know what's so funny? I actually forgot to write a write-up about them, and then I had to go back, and I was like, oh my gosh, no, this is huge because they're all Broncos coaches.
Yeah.
So, I think I was in denial. I was blocking it out. Jay Cutler is still a Bear, so that's the first piece of news. There's some reports that Brandon Marshall will no longer be a Bear, but that's not true because it looks like they're completely committing themselves to Cutler, and there is no Cutler without Marshall, so don't freak out. Don't drop him. It's not happening. Coaches, John Fox, you will be missed. New head coach of the Chicago Bears. If you can't get along with John Fox, you probably are a terrible person. / the end of your career, I guess. I mean,
he's so nice. But.
Come on, you may not think that he's going to bring you a Super Bowl, like John Elway doesn't think, but he certainly doesn't dislike John Fox. No one actually dislikes the guy.
No, probably parted ways over beers and a golf, and that's how it goes. Yeah.
Absolutely. So Dowell Loggins is the unluckiest man in America / the quarterback's coach. He was the quarterback's coach in Cleveland last year. So, in fact, he may be the only one that thinks this is an upgrade from Hoyer and Manziel.
Yeah, might be. So, only one qualified to deal with this mess.
Right, or the least qualified. I can't decide. I'm wavering, and so is probably John Fox. But I will say Frank Smythe, the offensive assistant from the Saints, is now the tight ends coach. He had the greatest tight ends ever, so hopefully that helps. And Martellus Bennett is already kind of a beast, so that actually does have fantasy relevance. Adam Gase, the offensive coordinator, followed John Fox from the Broncos, and he's breaking my heart, but he's fabulous. And pretty much basically what the Bears are doing is that they're setting everything up right now, right? And then they have the San Francisco defensive coordinator now, Vic Fangio. He is the Bears defensive coordinator. So even their defense is going to get better. Basically, if what the coaching staff looks like is that if Jay Cutler does not up his game immensely, he's gone. This is it. This is his swan song. This is his moment. He either does it or he does not. But it is clear that that they're trying to set him up to succeed, and if he fails, they're done. So
we will see.
There you go.
There you go. Good luck. Good luck, coaches. You got some pistols on.
I'll believe it when I see it when they get rid of Cutler. Although I never thought I'd see them do it in Denver.
So 6-10 season, but whatevs. NFC South, Carolina Panthers. No real news. And Riverboat Ron recently announced that he doesn't plan on making any changes to the coaching staff, other than the fact they did hire a new special teams coordinator. Richard Rodgers, they needed it. Their special teams were awful. So hopefully this will only up the ante. I want those Panthers, defense to be like rocking next year, just like rocking. So we'll see. But other than that, there's not much out of the Panthers.
All right.
They're rolling with Cam. They are looking to draft a wide receiver at early, so that should help the offense big time. But other than that,
yeah. Calvin Benjamin's like, yes, I would like a friend.
Yeah, please.
He's like the oldest child asking for a little brother.
I know, yeah.
Please.
Yeah. That's so perfect. That's exactly what it is. I want a little brother.
I just want someone to play with.
Yeah. New
Orleans Saints, Jimmy Graham may or may not have shoulder surgery. Stay tuned. But it doesn't really matter because you're going to have to draft him as the second tight end off the board and early. So, sorry. Who cares? Shoulder or no shoulder, he's your guy. Mark Ingram is going to be a free agent, but he wants to return to the team. And considering he's the first primary back that New Orleans has ever committed to, we also want him to stay with the team. So... Last season, he ran for 964 yards and 9 touchdowns. He was also injured. He almost broke 1,000 yards. Please, Saints, work it out. Coaches, interesting hire, Dennis Allen, former Raiders head coach. I don't know why all these Raiders are getting hired like in mass, but he is not the defensive assistant, or he is now, he is now the special defensive assistant to the defensive coordinator, Rob Ryan. A made-up thing, and I'm wondering if this is their way of saying, Rob Ryan, you are on borrowed time. So
Possible. Possible.
that's all I got for
Love
them.
it. Falcons.
Falcons.
Okay.
All right. Well, I'll start with the coaching and then I'll do the news just because it's a little more fun that way. Mike Smith was fired after 6 seasons. I'm a little sad. I actually really liked Mike Smith.
Yeah.
And that was, done rather quickly. So Mike Smith was gone. New hires straight after the Super Bowl. The Falcons have hired Dan Quinn as their new head coach. This deal is for 5 years. So it could be again. He was from the Seahawks. So it could be. It might be the remainder of Matt Ryan's career that he is now with his coach. Maybe not. You never know. But interesting. This is going to be Matt Ryan's first coach other than Mike Smith. So. That is something that I do want you to think about and factor into fantasy-wise. Definitely be watching the OTAs to kind of see what kind of impact that might have. I feel like I have a lot of faith in Matt Ryan that I don't think it's going to be an issue. But you never know. You never know. It makes me a little bit nervous. On to the fun news. An interesting and not entirely relevant news, or will it be? The Falcons have hired Steve, I'm probably going to botch the name here, Scarnecchia, who is directly related to Spygate with the Patriots.
Yes.
So he was part of the video department with the Pats from 2001 to 2004.
I'm sorry, that's so funny.
He was
the video
found,
department.
The video department, the department.
Mm-hmm.
He was then found in a scandal again while working in the video department as the video operations director for the Denver Broncos under Mr. Josh McDaniels, formerly from the Patriots.
Mm-hmm. It's all related.
It is, and this is when he was caught on tape as at the San Francisco game in 2010, video recording there. And, full circle, he is the son of longtime Patriots offensive line coach Dante Scarnecchia. So it's all in the family. Really, it's all in the Pats family. So not sure this was a smart move on the Falcons' part, as currently they're being investigated for pumping in fake crowd noise during home games the past 2 seasons. So, like Courtney's saying, Noisegate, Spygate, Deflategate, Textgate, they're all intertwined.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently the name is Scarnecchia.
Sharkgate.
The Falcons aren't the only ones that do this. It's like, really, people? The Falcons didn't even win any games.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Clearly, you were just messing up your lines, not the other team's lines. But
it's nuts.
Details.
The moral of the story is when you think about any sort of gate, think Scarnecchia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that.
Might be. I don't know.
All right. Well, what gate is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers going to come up with?
They have no gate. They're boring as always, but I do have a little something for them. Little something. In completely non-shocking news, guys, there is actually talk that Doug Martin might be a backup in 2015, if he's even on the team.
I feel bad for Doug Martin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel he didn't play well. I mean, I can't. This is there's talk. It shouldn't be talk. It should be a given at this point, quite honestly. And the Bucs are also in the middle of dumping off players to stockpile draft picks. They've just been dumping, getting their picks. And there's talk that Vincent Jackson of being trade bait to even up their draft picks even more. So he had another surprisingly 1,000+ season. So there is market value for him. Granted, he is older, but there is some value for Vincent Jackson. So, and quite honestly, it might be the best thing for him to get out of Tampa Bay because he is and has been a talented receiver. So depending on where he lands, definitely think about possibly drafting him. Again, we have to wait and see where he lands. If he doesn't land, maybe he stays in Tampa, but someone to keep your eye out on. Coaching-wise, I find this one to be a little odd, but Dirk Coder, that's how you say his name.
I love that people are actually named Dirk.
I know, it's so good.
Right. He is the new offensive coordinator for the Bucs, replacing Jeff Tedford and Marcus Arroyo. I'm confused why there's 2 people for the job that he is now replacing, so that's what I'm confused about. But he was previously the Falcons' offensive coordinator, so kind of just swapping in one for the other. So no big deal there. That's about it for the Bucs.
NFC West. All right, Seattle Seahawks.
Great. There's really not much to say other than news. They were in the Super Bowl. They did not win. And we already talked about Marshawn Lynch. And their defensive coordinator left to be a head coach. So they're going to have to replace him. And it looks like they're just going to probably promote their defensive back coach, Chris Richardson. It hasn't been announced yet because it's only been a couple days since they had their heart torn out and stampled on. So
yeah, give them a minute. Give them
a minute. But right now there's nothing to report. They're just mourning.
Sad.
Sorry.
Arizona Cardinals.
Interesting, though, that Bill Belichick went to bat for Pete Carroll, saying that he thinks it's offensive people keep, complain about the call, which is interesting. I feel like Belichick usually goes to bat for anybody, so that's interesting.
Yeah, right. He's thinking, thank God he made a bad play call so we can stop talking about Deflategate.
Mm-hmm.
Please. Rumors coming out of Arizona indicate that longtime wide receiver superstar Larry Fitzgerald could be released or traded in this offseason. Sad for Arizona. Probably not so sad for Larry, though. He's still got it, you guys. He's been a victim of bad quarterbacks, injured quarterbacks, lack of quarterbacks. I'm hoping he gets traded or picked up by a fabulous team with a fabulous quarterback, and his fantasy value will go where it should have, where you did draft him this year.
Yeah.
Keep an eye on that, you guys. Just things are moving around. Coaches, Bruce Arians was one NFL's Coach of the Year.
As he should.
Anyone who gets to
the playoffs with Ryan Lindley.
Seriously.
Hats off to you.
Hats off. Hats off.
Very stylish hat, by the way.
Exactly. A cap.
Cap.
Golf. What is it? What are those called, Ashley? You should know.
It's like a
golf hat.
Chapeau or something.
Oh, that was nice, Brandon.
Why should I know?
Because you play golf.
Brandon just said that chapeau is a French for hat.
Oh, yeah, that's great.
There you go. Got it.
I can't tell you what that word is in English, my first language. Yes, Brandon, you are correct.
Thank you.
Yeah.
For French. Yeah. By the way, he looks snazzy, looking good.
He does. But the biggest news coming out of Arizona is the loss of defensive coordinator Todd Bowles, which we spoke about, who's going to the New York Jets. They announced on Wednesday that they are going to stay in-house and just hire outside linebacker coach for the job. So that's good. So hopefully it'll still stay consistent because the Arizona Cardinals defense was on point. So if they can keep that going, go Cardinals 2015. Love them. Love them.
Great.
San Francisco 49ers.
All right. Well, no real news other than supposedly Colin Kaepernick is going to train with Kurt Warner over the offseason. Odd pairing, but can't hurt. So maybe they'll be like the odd couple. Literally. I have no idea what. Yeah, anyway, I love it. So new coaches. They have a new head coach, Jim Tomsula, and he's a defensive guy who was promoted in-house. They really kind of kept a low profile. I thought, after this huge Jim Harbaugh departure that was the first departure and the most dramatic, as far as I could tell, out of all of the head coaching situations, they really went non-dramatic and very low-key for all of their hiring. Scott Brown is the defensive line coach. I'm going to butcher this. Obreo Franklin is the defensive assistant coach. Tony Sparano, senior, I guess, is the new tight ends coach, which is interesting because one of the big things that they keep talking about is that they need to use Vernon Davis, which I'm like, he's on the team?
Right.
Oh.
Newsflash.
Oh, okay. Jeez, that was a crazy year last year. So I don't know. I mean, we'll see. Actually, Tony Sparano tutored Witten, I guess, his first 2 years in the league. So I did not know that, but I guess that's the reality of it. And Eric Mangini is the defensive coordinator. And this kind of feels like the who's who of ex-head coaches.
Kind of, a little bit, right?
A little bit. So
where's Waldo?
A little bit. He was the 49ers tight end coach last year. Now, we just said the tight end situation was bad last year, but he actually has a defensive background. He was the defensive backs coach and the defensive coordinator in New England before he went off to be a head coach for the Jets and the Browns. So that should be good. Steve Logan.
Defense. It wasn't a Vernon Davis problem. It was a Colin Kaepernick offensive calls problem.
It was a lot of problems. I think it was a Jim Harbaugh checked out week 3 problem.
Yeah.
It was a lot of. I mean, I don't even know.
I want to know the backstory there. There had to be a backstory, and I want to know when it's going to come out. And I'm excited.
Well, they almost traded him to the Browns, and he was like, "Excuse me, I just took you to the NFC Championship and the Super Bowl. What more do you want?"
It is offensive. I mean, it's offensive.
Yeah, it's offensive. So this is really weird. Steve Logan is the quarterback's coach, which we just said that Colin Kaepernick was a problem, right? Well, this is odd because for the last 2 years, he's worked as a football analyst on The Fan. He's on radio, and his last job was a running backs coach for Tampa Bay in 2011.
So you're saying we have a chance.
So I'm a little intrigued about Colin Kaepernick next year, and I'm glad he has Kurt Warner. And it looks like they are going to promote their quarterback's coach from last year, I think it's Geep Christ. It's Geep. Geep? Let's go Geep. Geep Christ to offensive coordinator. And supposedly everyone wants Kaepernick to do more read option plays, so...
Yay. Woohoo. What about the St. Louis Rams? Any news?
No, we're putting out a Craigslist ad for an offensive coordinator.
Good.
No one really wants to take up on that, so we'll see what's going on. I mean, it's sad, right? They're kind of like, oh, well, who's going to be helping Sam Bradford out? And I was like, okay, first of all, don't say Sam Bradford. You're putting bad juju out there. He's going to tear a ligament with you just saying his name. Please stop.
Poor guy.
So I feel so bad for him. No, literally, I don't know. I mean, there's, maybe Kyle Shanahan. There had been talk of, Chuditsky, talk of Alex Van Pelt. I mean, who knows? We'll see. And unfortunately, the Rams aren't super fantasy relevant to even really discuss it, sadly. But I'm intrigued to see what or who they can land.
Great.
Yeah.
NFC East, Dallas Cowboys. The big news coming out of Dallas is whether the Cowboys will be able to secure wide receiver Dez Bryant and running back DeMarco Murray. There's obviously a lot of rumors about Adrian Peterson going to the Cowboys. Jerry Jones got him under fire last year when you spoke to Peterson. So, I mean, it's a bunch of he says, she says right now. We don't really know what's going on. I'm sure Jerry Jones will do the right thing and make the money come up because those two guys were, Dez obviously is just consistent every year. DeMarco was huge last year. He was just huge. I mean,
and they keep saying they ran him into the ground, but I didn't see him slowing down at all.
No, not even remotely.
No. So, I mean, let's keep it consistent, Cowboys. Let's keep it real. And their coaching staff was selected to coach this year's Pro Bowl.
Yeah.
Mostly because wide receiver Michael Irving was biased towards them, I'm sure. But it's gonna play. It's keeping pretty consistent. Jerry Jones, when he's got a good thing, he's gonna keep it. He knows what's up. I'm into it. Philadelphia Eagles.
They're supposedly negotiating with Jeremy Maclin, as they should. So hopefully they get to keep him. And LaShawn McCoy, I'm sorry, what?
They need to keep him.
Yeah, they have to.
Mandatory.
Yeah, so fingers crossed. And then LaShawn McCoy supposedly is open to restructuring his deal because he really wants to stay in Philadelphia and because 2014 happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I know. Well, I mean, it's a bad year to have to say, I want more money. It's like, I don't know. So there are rumors that Nick Foles will be on the trading block and that the Rams are interested. Now, Foles says he plans on being in Philadelphia. I think that, obviously the Sanchez was really tempting, but I think they're going to stick with Foles unless they trade up to get Marcus Mariota in the draft. But I don't think they're going to do that. I think the Foles is going to be there. So, but keep an eye on it. And then the coaches, you know, there was some speculation that he was going to get fired. He had this big meeting, and it ended up that actually he just got more power. So he just basically promoted everyone in his coaching staff, and now he's in charge of who's going to be on the team, pretty much. So,
have you seen that commercial with Chip Kelly and the kid in the grocery cart?
Yes.
It's like something like the official NFL, official chip, and he's just standing in a car, and Mom's like, we only buy official chips, and he's like, sorry, Chip, I can't get you, and Chip has to like hop out of the cart. It's amazing.
It's so good.
Good.
Oh,
it's great.
I love Chip Kelly. Love Chip Kelly. I love Mark Trestman. Great year.
Right. New York Giants. Yes, everybody. Tom Coughlin is still the head coach.
Yes.
Still going. It's still happening.
Never gonna stop.
Exciting. And
who's the person that on Facebook always has rumors that they're dead? Betty White, right?
Betty White. Yeah, the poor
He's
woman.
like the Betty White of the NFL, where he's always allegedly fired and never is.
Never is. He's there, guys. In fact, the owner said that it is up to Coughlin to make any other coach changes. So anything that's going down is Coughlin's. So we'll see in late January. It looked like they weren't going to make any changes. They were just going to stay pretty consistent. But they did recently announce the hiring of Steve Spagnuolo as the new defensive coordinator. So that'll be good. He was a defensive mastermind that ended the Patriots' winning streak back when the Giants won the Super Bowl. So this should be good. This should be good. And, of course, our thoughts and prayers are with Victor Cruz and him getting healthy and being back to, now a wide receiver too, the Giants.
I have two minor little thoughts about that. Number one is I bought a Cosmopolitan magazine, and they have men and their dogs. And did you know that he has a very little tiny dog that he carries around?
Oh, yeah.
I did not know this. I felt very left out. Oh, and he wears, salmon. And he's here, his little dog, and I'm like, oh, Victor Cruz.
And his pants are slightly a little short. I don't know if he'll wear socks.
Love it.
Into it.
Also, how many gift baskets do you think the Coughlin family sent Odell Beckham Jr.?
Yeah.
As
they still are sending gift baskets.
Yeah. Like on repeat? Is it like wine baskets? Is it, he's not in any kind of program, so he can drink wine. Is it fruit baskets? That's what I want to know.
He wants, quite honestly.
Yeah. Like what basket?
He's a freak. I'm getting him next year in our family league.
Round 1.
yeah. All right, Washington Redskins.
So coaches that were fired, Jim Haslett, they mutually agreed to part ways. He was the defensive coordinator for the Redskins, which then insert Joe Barry. He's been hired as defensive coordinator. He was previously with the Chargers as the linebacker coach. Perry Fewell with the Redskins will be joining the Redskins as their staff with the defensive backs coach. His last role was as defensive coordinator for the Giants. So that'll be interesting. And then kind of in terms of news, I'm surprised but not surprised by this one. So Chris Cooley is predicting that RG3 will be the quarterback without competition next year. And he said this on a radio show. And the hosts were like aghast. They're just like, and then he goes on in detail and then says, and I came to this really, really logical conclusion. I may not like this conclusion, but I'm going to start to embrace this conclusion. This is what is likely to happen for the Washington Redskins next year. Does anyone disagree with me that this is probably the most likely? There's no competition. There's just no one else to truly compete. So pretty much he's thrown who he thinks is going to be his starting quarterback under the bus and then says that all other people are too terrible to even compete with who is already too terrible in his mind to be a starting quarterback. So the Redskins are starting off on a good foot.
Good. It's good.
Some things never change. Some things never change.
I love
2013 all over again for 2015. Keep it coming.
They give us something to talk about. Thank you, Redskins.
Circle of life
never stops.
Amazing. Well, the ladies of Her Fantasy Football always say that kickers matter, you guys, but so do coaches. Keep an eye on it. There's going to be more hires, so it does matter. It does affect fantasy work So don't forget about the coaches, all right?
Big deal.
Big deal. Waivers start. The combine is in a week and a half, 2 weeks. It's crazy. It's happening so fast. We'll be doing a show after that to follow up with all the exciting stuff coming out of the combine. And happy Super Bowl win to the New England Patriots. Congratulations again to Patriots Nation. It's a very exciting time for you. Hop over to HerFantasyFootball.com. We are still doing our team highs and lows of 2014. I mean, some of them are pretty entertaining. Some are not, to be honest. Make sure to talk to us on Twitter at HerFantasyFB. And thank you again to Blog Talk Radio. We are so excited. Come follow us on there and on iTunes. SoundCloud, we will not forget you. We will be back on SoundCloud. We just don't know when. So please hop over to iTunes to subscribe to us this off-season. We will continue to do shows and talk fantasy. Until next time, no more faking it.